to Itentive Healthcare Solutions webinar. We're excited to share our NextGen add-on solution, RefundManager, with you today. My name is Chelsea Grover, and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for Itentive. I'd like to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I'd like to mention that this webinar will be recorded. Next, for those of you who aren't familiar with Itentive, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We specialize specifically in NextGen healthcare, and our goal in life is to make delighted clients by helping them get the absolute most out of their NextGen software investment. We're passionate about providing solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. To sum it up, we do everything NextGen. And along with RefundManager, we have another add-on productivity solution for NextGen, ChartCard, which creates PDF backups of your patient charts. Next, I wanted to mention an educational webinar that we're going to be presenting tomorrow. What you need to know about the 2018 QPP proposed rule and the future of value-based care. I was just working on the PowerPoint for this webinar a few minutes ago, and it looks great. Its primary focus is on the 2018 Quality Payment Program proposed rule, analyzing current program policies compared to the program proposed changes for the 2018. We will look at each of the major changes proposed by the rule and explain how this will impact your clinicians and practice. We will also highlight other important pieces of legislation that have either recently been released or finalized and our much-watch list for rules to keep track of. If you haven't registered for that yet, jump over to our website to do that now on the Events and Education page. Okay, so back to today's webinar. For audio clarity purposes, everyone's phone is going to remain muted throughout the entire webinar. If you experience audio issues, please use the chat box to let us know so we can resolve them. And please use the questions area to ask any questions that you have. We're going to answer all the questions at the end, but you can type them in whenever they occur to you. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. Tom Seco is Itentive's Business Development Manager, and Joel Schultz is the Director of Product Solutions at Itentive. So Tom, I'm going to go ahead and pass the webinar off to you. Please feel free to get started when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Chelsea. And thank you everyone for joining our webinar today to learn more about RefundManager and how to streamline and automate the credit balance handling and refund check processing within NextGen. Here's an agenda we put together for the webinar. We'll talk about what RefundManager is, and you'll learn about why practices buy RefundManager. You'll learn about how it works. You'll see this through the demonstration of RefundManager when I turn it over to Joe Schultz to go through the demonstration. And then once the demonstration is done, I'll come back and we'll give you a brief overview of who Itentive is. And as Chelsea mentioned, we'll answer your submitted questions at the end of the webinar. So to start with RefundManager, the purpose of RefundManager is really to make your job easier. And we do this by streamlining and automating the refund process, the way that you handle credit balances and decide what to do with those credit balances. We integrate with your accounting application to eliminate data entry by bringing data over. And we can integrate with applications such as QuickBooks, Peachtree, ACPAC, Sage 100, Microsoft Dynamics, so many different accounting applications. The overall goal of RefundManager is to increase productivity. When we went back and talked to our clients who use RefundManager, they came back and told us that they've been able to reallocate resources to other areas of billing and accounts receivable, and that they've been able to spend less time sending money out of the organization and spend more time bringing money into the organization. At the same time, we went back and talked to our clients about it. They came back with many different comments about RefundManager, and here's some snippets of those comments. I won't go into each one, but I will focus your attention on a couple of them. If you look at the first bullet, it says reduce from days down to hours now, and that shows that there is a productivity improvement. If you look at the fourth bullet, it says pays for itself in time savings alone. That shows that there is a return on investment. There are risks associated with carrying credit balances in the system, and we'll go into these risks. There are Medicare penalties where if you don't get credits back to them in a timely manner, you can face suspension of payments, as well as some fines. Third-party insurance contracts usually have clauses in them with regards to getting credits back to them in a timely manner. And if not, you can be in violation of the contract and subject to audits as well. There are state laws that specifically address credit balances that are due individuals, and they vary from state to state. Here's a couple of examples of what those laws are. In California, they require you to pay interest after 60 days of following an overpayment. In Oregon, you have 3 years, after 3 years of credit balances, they go to unclaimed property. And many states have unclaimed property laws where if they go unclaimed after a period of time, could be 3 years, could be 2 years, they have to get reported back to the state. There can be class action lawsuits as well. Some organizations think that credit balances are a revenue stream, meaning if the credit balances go unclaimed, they can take that money and bring it back into the organization. And just as we talked about with regards to Medicare and state laws, that is not the case. The last item, potential for fraud. We talked to many organizations over the years, both prospects and clients, who have many instances of credit balances in their system. They could have thousands to tens of thousands of instances in their system, equating to tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit balances in their system. And when you're getting into those types of numbers, they can lead to unethical activities. So managing your credit balances by using a tool like RefundManager enables you to minimize the risks that are associated with carrying the credit balances. These next few slides I'm going to go through with you are cover the process of handling credits balances within an organization. So identifying where the credits are and then taking them through to the accounting application to print the checks, and the process of bringing that information back into NextGen. So in a typical environment, you'll have credit balances in your system, and you'll either process those credit balances in a couple different ways. One, in what I'll call a proactive manner, meaning that you print off a report, or you have some type of regular process that you go through to process those credit balances, and you do that on a regular basis. The other way is you have a patient that calls up and says, I have a credit balance on my account and I would like to have a refund check issued to me. So in that manner, you're being reactive to processing that credit balance. In either case, whether you're going to be proactive or reactive, you're going to go through a series of steps to find out about that credit balance and decide what to do with that credit balance. You're going to look at the encounter details, you're going to look at the transaction details, you're going to look at the account details to see what makes up that credit balance. And then you're going to decide whether to issue a refund or maybe apply that credit in some manner to an encounter that has no balance on it. And you could also task it out to somebody else for further research if you can't decide what to do with that credit balance. In all of those instances, you're going to go through these 4 steps. So it can be a very step-intensive, time-intensive process when you're going through that. Once you get through all the credit balances and you've identified the ones that are for refunds, somehow you get that information over to accounting. And that information gets over to accounting in many different ways in many different organizations. It gets over by email, it gets over on a spreadsheet, it gets over by word of mouth, it gets over by somebody dropping the paper on somebody's desk, and they have to go through and process it. So once it gets over to accounting, accounting has to take that information and they have to enter in that information into the accounting application. So they generally have to manually enter in data entry of the recipient's name, their address, the city, the state, the zip, the amount of the refund, and then print the checks out. So that can be a manual process, quite a manual process as well. And then on the back end, some organizations, some practices enter that refund information back into NextGen. Some organizations do not do that. So you have that manual process. If you do enter that check information back then into NextGen, you have that manual process of going into NextGen, finding the patient, entering that information in there. So again, that's more data entry that occurs. So as you look at the full process from, identifying the credit balance and then deciding what to do with that credit balance, moving it over to accounting and moving it over to NextGen, you can see that it is a time-intensive, task-intensive, data entry-intensive process at some points. When we at Itentive took a look at this process with a couple of our clients many years ago, they wanted ways to streamline it and automate it, and we came up with a way to do that. So we looked at the total process, and we said, where could we get the use technology to get the biggest value out of this? Well, a couple of places that we looked at was how could we eliminate the data entry? So we were able to eliminate data entry on the accounting side by integrating with the accounting applications. We were able to eliminate the data entry on the back end by bringing that check information back over into NextGen and then updating the patient charts. On the front end with the billing, we were able to streamline that process by the way that we presented, one way by presenting the way that we present the information to the individuals on the screen makes it much easier for them to decide what to do with that credit balance and what makes up that credit balance, giving them ease to do the searches and find out what made up that credit balance. Also giving the individuals the opportunity to decide what to do with that credit balance, whether to issue a refund or mark it for applying the credit to an encounter that has an open balance on it, and let the refund manager automatically move that money for the individual to that encounter. And then, as I mentioned, being able to task it out for further research if you need to. So as we looked at this total process, we were able to streamline on the front end, be able to eliminate data entry in the accounting area and eliminate data entry on the back end of bringing that check information over. Refund Manager is made up of 3 modules, and you'll see these modules in the demonstration. The Credit Scout module, the Batch Detective module, and the Importer module. The Credit Scout module is the module that's going to be used by the individuals on the billing side to find the credit balances and then decide what to do with those credit balances, take some action on that credit balance, whether to issue a refund or apply that credit to an encounter that has an open balance on it, or to task it out to the work log manager in NextGen. The Batch Detective module is the one that brings the check information over to the accounting application. And then the Importer module is the module that's used to bring the check information as far as check number, check date, check amount, and update the NextGen patient account with that information. And you'll see these 3 modules in action in the demonstration when I turn it over, the presentation over to Joe, and he goes through that with you. So the benefits of Refund Manager is to reduce time and labor for issuing refunds. When we went back and talked to our clients about Refund Manager and what it has done for them, they have told us it saves them anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50% of the time. So there is significant time savings by using Refund Manager and able to improve the process of processing credit balances and issuing refund checks. You're able to apply credit balances to other encounters much more in a much more quicker manner. You can task out the credits for an in-depth review, so you can task it out to the work log manager, as I mentioned, and address it that way. We mentioned about the integration to the accounting applications in order to reduce data entry, and along with that, you also eliminate errors as well, because people, when they're doing the data entry, can enter in information wrong. So by doing the automation, you're able to eliminate errors along the way. Refund Manager documents itself along the way of all the activity that's occurring, and you'll see some of this documentation as Joe goes through the demonstration. And then, as I mentioned, you're able to import the check information back into NextGen so that the staff can see all the checks. Refund Manager, we made some updates to Refund Manager over the past year, and we now have Refund Manager for those organizations that have multiple practices set up in NextGen. You have the ability to see all of the practices or see a guarantor's financial picture across all of the practices. So if there's a physician's office and a surgery center set up as separate practices, you can see that guarantor's information across both of those practices. You can apply credits between the practices. So if somebody comes into the office and they make a deposit for a surgery center, and it ends up in the practice rather than the surgery center, you can take the credits and that credit or that deposit and apply it to the encounter in the surgery center. You can pick, as I mentioned, pick credits to refund from multiple practices on a single screen. You can create NextGen batches across the practices on a single screen. We incorporated the ability to allow a workflow to occur, meaning that you can now have individuals who are identified as requesters and individuals who are identified as refund check processors or refund processors, if you will. So one organization can, or one group of people can request the refunds, and another group of people can approve the refunds. And then for QuickBooks, we can have multiple checking accounts set up with the company. So now I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and Joe's going to go through a demonstration of our Refund Manager and show you the streamlining and then the automation, as well as the modules that are used.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom, and thank you everyone for attending today. I'm going to take you through Refund Manager, the modules that Tom was talking about, the Credit Scout, the Batch Detective, the Importer, and show you how that streamlines and automates the refund process. When we first created Refund Manager back in 2005, it had a fraction of the features it does today, but the goal was simple. It was to really make that refund process less painful than it is. You're spending this time getting money out of the practice. Well, let's make that quick and easy using the data that's already in the database and allow you to spend more time bringing money into the practice. Tom touched on that. I'm going to show you how it works. Refund Manager integrates directly with your NextGen practice management. It launches from the add-on menu in NextGen, and it's smart enough to know which database you're pointing at. So if you're pointing at NG Test or NG Prod, or in this case, NG Demo and so on, Refund Manager will follow suit along with NextGen. So we've gone to great lengths to make Refund Manager work very similar to what you're used to with NextGen Practice Management. So we wanted to get you up and running as quick as possible without having something that's a totally different paradigm than what you're used to in NextGen. So you're going to see things like the search criteria on the top of the screen, the results grid on the bottom of the screen. You're going to see us use the right mouse menus, just like you do in NextGen. So these modules that Tom talked about that we're going to cover today are in this toolbar along the top of Refund Manager here. So we have the Credit Scout, we have the Batch Detective, and we have the Import. We're going to start in the Credit Scout. That's our piece where we're looking into NextGen and we're trying to find credit balances that we want to do something with. We might want to refund it. We might want to take that credit balance and put it against another charge where money's owed within that same encounter, or maybe a different encounter within the same account. So we can do great things like that in Refund Manager. In the search screen, there's a variety of different ways to search that have been suggested to us by clients over time. People use Refund Manager really in one of two modes. One, they're looking up specific items. So that's where the last name, first name, or account or encounter number search comes into play. If you want to pull something up quickly, you can just type in the name or number and have it in the results window. We have other clients who are working a backlog of credits over time. So we have a date range search where they can put in what dates they want to continue to scan. Another reason for that is the longer the date range, the longer it takes for the search results to come back. So for clients who are caught up, they may just search for the last 60 days out to 120 days out. And that may be their kind of sweet spot of stuff where the insurance has been paid, now there's a credit, and they want to go ahead and get those credits refunded. And then occasionally they may search out further just to pick up the stragglers where activities happened well after the visit. Refund Manager's Credit Scout is multi-practice aware, but don't worry, if you're single practice, it still works great for you. If you're in a shared database with multiple practices, you only see the practices your user ID has access to and can only operate with those. Plus, we have an option where we can lock it to a single practice at a time, even if you do have multiple practices. So we have some great ways to integrate depending on if you're single practice or multi-practice. So I'm going to go ahead and use the default search criteria that I have in here from the last time I used the Credit Scout, and we'll click the Find button to perform our search. Now it's working with your NextGen database in real time here. It's not something you have to export. It's not something you need Rosetta for. This works and integrates directly with your NextGen database. What we're seeing here in the results down below is by guarantor, which ones have a credit balance, either in the patient bucket or in one of the payer buckets. Okay, and for those of you, again, that are single practice, you'll see the results underneath for a single practice. For those of you with multiple practices, we'll see some like the second line here where they have credits in multiple practices. Okay, if we want to see what that would look like, we can go ahead and expand this line out, clicking the little plus sign on the left here and see the two practices. And we can go ahead and keep expanding that down, starting from the guarantor, going to the practice, then to the refund recipient, and then to the encounters and charges that make that up. So we give you kind of a nice way to be able to visualize all that at once. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump to several other test patients that we have set up for demonstration purposes here. One of them has a multitude of refunds across encounters, and the other one has several payers that are getting refunds. So just to give you a quick idea of how this works and how fast it can be. But normally you'd work through your list here and find the ones that you want to take action on. Okay, so I'm going to start up here with our test patient, Marion Kelly. And as we go across, we can see there's a $123 credit. It's all in the one practice. We can click the plus sign to expand it out and see more detail. So again, we have the guarantor, we have the practice, we have who's getting the refund. This could be either the guarantor or one of the payers, and the encounters that make up that credit going back. And of course, we could go down to the charge level. Picking to refund something is as easy as clicking this checkbox here for refunds. So if we click down at a lower level, just the ones we click get selected. But if you click at a higher level, it'll pick everything underneath that. So we can go ahead and refund all 6 of these encounters. And what Refunds Manager is going to do is it's going to go into NextGen, it's going to figure out the amounts, and it's going to create the transaction in NextGen on your behalf in the batch that later on we're going to export out to the accounting system. So this right now is going to enable us to do at least 6 refunds. Some of these may have multiple charges that needed to be refunded, but it's going to do all that by us simply checking the refund box. Okay, there's another one here that's is where a multitude of entities are getting refunds, and that one I've set up with our test patient, Mildred Key. So we can see down below there's a $44 patient credit, $233 payer credit. So I'll go ahead and click to expand that, and we can see again the single practice, and then we have who's getting the refund. So we have the guarantor, and then we have our 2 insurances that are all getting refunds. So if we want to see more detail, we can go ahead and expand this out. Kind of a cool trick, once you get used to using Refund Manager, you realize what all the fields are, so you can make this display of the data a little cleaner and tighter by turning off the headers. And all of a sudden, you know, what you were looking at with all those kind of headers mixed in between just becomes the data. So it becomes pretty obvious once you're beginning to use it that, you know, this is encounter number, encounter date, and so on. So we find clients kind of turning off the headers after they've used it for several weeks and just going with this kind of cleaner view. So if we want to find out more about Mildred Key and what's going on, we can look in NextGen, but if we don't want to jump into NextGen, what we can do is screens that mimic the account summary and financial summary in NextGen. And again, these are provided here as a courtesy, so you're not always having to jump back over to NextGen. So we can go ahead and sort this, and we can look at the various transactions, again, just like the account screen in NextGen, and see what was posted as payments, what was done as adjustments, and help make that call on if we want to do the refund or not. And again, there's a screen that mimics the NextGen financial summary too. For the case of our demonstration today, I'm going to go ahead and issue refunds against all these encounters. So again, we had the ones up above we did where it was all going to the guarantor. There were 6 encounters. We have all these down below. Now, if you're thinking about NextGen, you'd be traveling through the various encounters and transaction screens, putting in dollar amounts, and spending a great deal of time putting together these refunds. So I'm going to show you how we do this very quickly in RefundManager without having to do all that. And again, that's one of the points of RefundManager is to streamline that refund processing. We give you the data, and instead of just saying refund every credit, because that's normally not what you want to do, we give you the ability to make the evaluation yourself. And then when you make that evaluation, we streamline how these get created. Okay, so you don't have to go through NextGen and create them all. Now, one of the other operations we can do with credits, as I mentioned earlier, is distribute them out to other places where money is owed. So again, I have a couple different patients that I've set up in my test database where I've created those scenarios. There's a way to search for just distributions. So those are candidates that have credits on some encounters and owe money on other encounters, but I've kind of mixed them in here so I don't have to keep searching for during our demonstration here today. So I'm going to take my test patient, Catherine, and what I can see is down here at the encounter, there's a $220 credit, but when I get up to the account, only $185.85 of that persists. So somewhere, Catherine owes us $34.15. Okay, so that's a case where we want to take part of that credit and distribute it out, then later on come back through and maybe refund the rest. So this rightmost checkbox here for the distribution is the one we pick if we want to distribute money. Okay, and we have 2 ways of doing that. We have one way where RefundManager will do it automatically. Excuse me, we'll do it automatically from oldest to newest. So I can go ahead and do my distribution preview. And if you think of this screen as 2 halves, everything on the left side of the mouse is where it's coming from, and everything on the right side is where it's going to. So it's the practice, the person, the encounter, the charge, the amount it's going to subtract from the credit, and then it's going over here to a different encounter, a different charge, and it's going to apply it against that balance. All right, so that's one way we can let RefundManager do that for us automatically, do that distribution, just kind of moving from oldest to newest. I used another test patient I set up here, Dennis Kramer, to do one that's a lot more complex. So this one, we have balances in several practices, and we can move money either within a practice or between practices using RefundManager. Again, if you're a single practice, works great, move money between charges and counters. If you have multiple practices, or say a practice and a surgery center, you can take deposits in the practice and then move them over to the surgery center once the person becomes a patient in the surgery center at a later date. So again, I picked the D checkbox, and I'm going to right mouse. Hang on, I keep like with the GoToMeeting, it's picking the wrong thing on here. So I'm going to go ahead, instead of distribution preview, I'm going to do distribution matching, and this is where you can pick which items go together. So on the left-hand side here is all your credits, and on the right-hand side is all your debits. So sometimes you may look at it and go, okay, these are the same amounts. This is an exact match. These ones are in the same practice. So I'm going to take those and pick a credit and match it with a debit. So what we're doing is we're just building these transactions here in the lower half of the screen. So we're telling it where to get the money from and where to send it to. And Refund Manager is going to set up all those transactions in NextGen for you. So I'll do maybe a couple more here. And we can see as we apply them, the balances change so that we can't keep reapplying once we've used up either a debit or a credit. So we'd go ahead and pick different ones. Okay, and when we've got the ones we want to do, it may be all of them, it may be some of them, we can just close out of the screen and it'll remember that when we go to process those transactions. The third thing we can do is if there's credits that are a complete mess and you want to go review them later, you can go ahead and put them into the NextGen work log by clicking this first checkbox to task. And I can just pick one of these and mark it off. You could pick several of them. That'll put it into the work log using a predefined task, and it'll go to the default user or group on that task. So what have we done so far? We've picked a whole bunch of encounters and entities that we want to refund to. We've picked balances that we want to distribute to other encounters, and we've picked one thing that we want to task out. So now when we're ready, we go ahead and right mouse and do process selected items. And this is where it'll go ahead and create the transactions and tasks and such in NextGen. Up at the top here, it'll give us by charge the number of things it's going to create and the various practices. Again, if your single practice works fine, you'll just see your practice. In the middle are the parameters it's going to use. Since I've done some refunds and some distributions, it's remembered the codes I used last time. I haven't done a task yet, so I'm going to do maybe refund research encounter. We can go ahead and check our batches and make sure we have batches in the practices that we're using. We can create batches from here in NextGen, or we can find existing batches that we may want to use in NextGen. Okay, so this is going to do the work for you in NextGen, and it's going to look as if you typed it all in, except you didn't have to go through all that work of bouncing between the screens. So it's going to create 11 refunds for us. Yep, let's go ahead and do that. And we'll jump into NextGen in a minute and show you what that looks like. So it's in NextGen, it's creating the transactions. They'll be tied to the batch. Again, just like if you did it manually, except much faster. Do we want to create our task? Yes, this is just kind of a last chance it gives you to bail out. And then it's going to do our distributions where we're moving money between encounters and practices. It's going to give us a quick summary of everything that we picked. And it's kind of, again, a last chance to verify that we want to do what we want to do. So again, the left side, everything left of the mouse is where it's coming from. The right side is where it's going to. So now it's done all that work for us in NextGen. It's put lines through the items that have been processed. So let's go ahead and go over back to practice management and find our batch. I'm going to go ahead and post it. And then we'll, from the batch listing report, we'll go in and we'll take a look first at the distributions and then at the refunds. So as Tom mentioned, we also document as we go along. So I'll show you some notes and stuff that are in there. Now at the top, we have our distributions and stuff. We have some refunds. Again, this is your standard batch listing report, right? It's sorted by transaction code. So let's go ahead and go into the account for Dennis Kramer here. And we'll see these transactions that were just created today. And for the ones that are within the practice, the net will be 0 because it's just moving money from one charge to another charge or one encounter to another encounter. Okay, so this top one, it's just moving it between charges. This bottom one, it's actually moving it between encounters. In fact, if we go into one of these, we can see it'll put in the notes kind of the the from to type information. So if the money's being moved, where it's coming from, the encounter and the charge, and then where it's going to. And then also we create a note for you here. Okay, so distribution performed by Refund Manager, we're moving $12 from here to this encounter. Okay, we also do similar things with the refunds. So let's go ahead and take one of our people that we've done a refund for. I'm going to take this one for Mildred Key here on encounter 24351. And we can go in and we can see the transaction that was just created. And right now in the tracking description, it has the batch that it was part of. When we complete this process, we'll also have the check information in here from the accounting system. Additionally, like before, we created a note giving you some more documentation as to what was created, to who, by who, and when. All right, so all that's done for you automatically just by clicking those check boxes and telling Refund Manager to go ahead and do its processing. So now we have these distributions that we're done with in NextGen. We've moved the money around, we've posted it, that's all good. But we have these refunds in NextGen that we got to get out to the accounting system. In the demonstration environment today, we're using QuickBooks Professional. As Tom mentioned, there's a whole bunch of them that we support. Everything from Dynamics GP to various Sage products and so on. And if it's not one that we support, we've written other ones for other clients. So, again, let us know when we talk to you, and then we can look at if, we have ways to support that one, if we can do a CSV file, what needs to be done, because most accounting systems do have some way to import and export information. So let's go back to Refund Manager, and we're done with the Credit Scout, which is the part where we're facing into NextGen. Now we want to kind of turn a little bit and face into the accounting system. So we want to find these batches that have one or more refund transactions, and we want to get them out to the accounting system. So here's our one for $400. I'm going to right mouse and export. Because we're using QuickBooks, Refund Manager gives us the ability to consolidate checks to the same payer. Other accounting systems do this automatically typically. But here we can go ahead, and for those of you that use QuickBooks, and just say, instead of Mary and Kelly getting 6 checks, we're going to create one for the whole amount. It's turned on for patients here. It's not turned on for insurances. So those ones we need to manually consolidate to get a single check. So there's configuration options that we work with you on during the installation. So once we got all this done, we can go ahead and finish the export out to the accounting system. A number of accounting systems we export to in real time. Other ones we create files that move back and forth between Refund Manager and the accounting system. So it really depends on the capabilities of that accounting system, which path we take. So now we took those 11 refunds, we got it down into 5 checks. So let's go talk to our accounting people and go, hey, how did you like not entering all those checks, right? Which normally accounting folks love Refund Manager for that reason. They're not spending hours entering payments and vendors and things like that. So what I can do is kind of scroll back and see what was created. If you remember this one, Mary and Kelly, we had multiple payments in there. Okay, so it consolidated them all into a single check. All right, so on the accounting side, we talk about streamlining and automating. This is really almost full automation. We've put the information into the accounting side without them having to do all that data entry. So now when they're ready to go ahead and print their checks, they just do a review, they queue them up, they put their check stock in the printer, and they go ahead and print them out. I'm just going to print them to a file here so we don't waste paper. And then, again, in your accounting system is where you do your reprints. If the checks didn't come out right, the check stock was upside down, something like that, I'm going to say all my checks printed okay. So now on the accounting side, you have your checks ready to go out. All the checks have a check number and check date assigned to them. Let's go ahead and get that information and pull it back into NextGen. Tom was showing this in the workflow slide. This is kind of that piece that was all the way on the right where you do that data entry so you have the information documented in NextGen. But instead of doing data entry, we're going to go ahead and go to that third module we talked about, the import, and we're going to let the computer do the work for us. So we're going to right mouse, import, and remember we started with, I think it was like 11 refunds that we consolidated down to 5 checks, so it was able to split those checks back out and update those. So what does that look like again in NextGen? Well, let's go back to our practice management. I'm just going to toggle back and forth to refresh. One of the things Refund Manager did when it exported is it created an export note. And again, it captured the address that was in play. One of the reasons it captures the address in here is Refund Manager has the ability to assign alternate addresses to refunds, so does NextGen now. So it's good to have documented what the actual address was that was in play when it was sent over to accounting. But again, this is another note that gets created for you automatically. Let's go back up to our transactions in the tracking description where we had the batch before. Now it has the check number, check date, check amount. Because this was a consolidated check, we can see that visually the check amount was greater than that one. So that's a cue for us that there was probably another payment on this check too. So all that information comes back into NextGen for you just with mouse clicks. And again, that's part of the success of Refund Manager, and how it helps you is it streamlines and automates the refund process. And what I've shown you today is kind of a nice view into how exactly it works. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Tom now to continue the slides.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So thank you for taking us through Refund Manager and showing us the various modules of how Refund Manager shows on the Credit Scout, the Batch Detective, and the Importer module. Generally, people ask us what it takes to implement Refund Manager, and it takes about 90 minutes to install the software physically in your environment. We also have put together training videos. There's about 4 of them that are 10 to 11 minutes in length each, and we ask you to go through the training videos. We also give you the user guide and have you review the user guide of Refund Manager. And then what we do is one of our Refund Manager specialists will have a call with you to answer any questions that you have with regards to what you have seen in the videos and read in the user guide. At that point, we'll schedule time with you to train you on Refund Manager using Refund Manager in your test environment. And you'll get familiar with Refund Manager in your test environment. Once you are feel comfortable with Refund Manager in your test environment, what we'll then do is point it to your production environment, and then we'll be on the phone with you going through the first few batches of credits in your production environment to make sure you go through, you understand, the process is going smoothly for you, answer any questions that you have that come up with your actual information. So a little bit about Itentive and who we are. We were founded in 2003, and as Chelsea mentioned at the beginning, our mission is to create additional value for your NextGen investment. We know that when you purchased NextGen, it was a major investment, and that investment probably has grown over the years. So we want to work with you to get as much value out of that investment as possible. We have 19 years of experience with NextGen. We have 70-some employees across the country, most of which are consultants that travel from practice to practice, health center to health center, working with you to improve your processes, get as much out of NextGen as possible, so that you can get that value, that return on investment. If you take the 19 years and when we were founded in 2003, they don't add up, and the reason for that is Itentive started out as the IT department for a medical organization, and back in the late 90s and early 2000s, when the business mantra back then was to focus on what you do best and outsource the rest, the medical organization was going to outsource the IT group, And the leaders of the IT group said, if you want to do that, what we'd like to do is form our own company and provide services back to you. So they agreed to do that, and from that point forward, we've worked with over 350 to 400 clients using NextGen. And during this time frame, we've become a strategic partner with NextGen as well. With our experience that we have with NextGen, we can do implementations, we can do process improvements, as I mentioned, improving processes as workflows and business processes. We have a group of developers that can do template enhancements to NextGen. We can do upgrades to NextGen and provide support for NextGen as well. We have a group of IT folks that can provide IT managed services, meaning that we can take over support for your computers, your printers, your local area networks, things like that. We also have our own data center, so we can do hosting of clients' environments where we can host your whole environment in our data center. And then we have a group of developers that have developed productivity tools, of which RefundManager is one. And as Chelsea alluded to a little bit earlier, we have a ChartGuard product that is business continuity. And basically at the high level, what that does is it goes out every night and looks at your patients that are scheduled to come in for the next day. It then goes out and pulls that information as far as their chart information out of NextGen, puts it into a file and creates a chart in a PDF format, and then sends it to the location where that patient's going to be seen. So the chart is their resident locally in case that location loses access to NextGen. If the location loses access to NextGen, the providers and staff at that location can go to that PC and then be able to take a look at the patient chart information there. We also download the appointment listing as well, so everybody knows who's coming in. So you can continue on with seeing patients while the IT group is trying to get NextGen back online. And then we have a derivative of that called ChartGuard Archiver, which is usually used for long-term storage of charts. At this time, we'll turn it over for any questions that you might have. As Chelsea mentioned, you can go ahead and enter the questions into the question box, and we'll answer any questions that you have.
Hey, great. Thank you, Tom, and thanks for the demo, Joe. Again, Joe and his team are the ones that actually built this tool. So if you have any super technical questions, we can answer those, or at least Joe can. So feel free to type your questions in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar panel, and we're just going to answer them in the order that they got received. We don't have too many of them, so it's a good time to ask questions if you have them. First question, what version of NextGen can be used for RefundManager?
I'll go ahead and jump in on that one. This is Joe. We support the versions of NextGen that NextGen supports. In fact, sometimes we just kind of by chance we support versions going back. So if you're on 5.7, 5.8, UD1, UD2, UD3, and right now we're certifying with 5.9, we keep RefundManager current with NextGen. So we've been doing this again for a dozen years now, and it's part of our job and part of the maintenance you pay on RefundManager to have something that continues to work with NextGen going forward. And we've had a good run of that over the past dozen years. In fact, we originally wrote RefundManager back when NextGen Practice Management was version 3.4. And that was probably the biggest change we ever had, was going from 3 to 5, but NextGen 5 has been fairly static for the financial pieces of NextGen.
Great, thank you, Joe. Next question, we run in a Citrix environment. Is that going to be an issue?
Another excellent question. ChartGuard, well, RefundManager is designed to run in both environments. So it can run on a PC, it can run in Citrix, it can run in a mixed environment. It uses a lot of the same technologies that NextGen Practice Management uses to be coded and created. So for that reason, yes, it will run in a Citrix environment.
Great, thanks. How much training is required?
As Tom mentioned in his training slide, the training is pretty straightforward. We have several training videos that we have you watch and maybe peruse the user guide. And then what we'll do is we'll do kind of a 60 to 90 minute session where either in test or production, depending on how you're set up, we'll walk some refunds through from beginning to end with you. And we'll offer that service as many times as you need it. We normally find that clients, after once or twice, as you've seen today, Refund Manager is very straightforward to use. So after one or two walkthroughs, they're often going to the races and doing it on their own. So the timing, it's, again, about an hour to watch the videos and then maybe 90 minutes with us online.
Perfect. Thank you, Joe.
And then, just add one more thing to that is we also have we schedule a kickoff call for every project that we have with Refund Manager. So what we'll do is schedule a kickoff call. It's about 30 minutes in length, and get all the parties together with regards to who's involved with implementing Refund Manager, using Refund Manager, and people on, as Joe mentioned, people from his team that are involved with it to talk about the project plan, whose responsibilities are given for what tasks, so we can pull a lot of that information together too.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Last question. Does Refund, looks like we got a couple. Are you able to email me today's presentation? Yes, absolutely. We'd be happy to send out a recording of today's presentations. We'll do that in a couple days for you. Does Refund Manager work only with QuickBooks?
No, it doesn't. It works with many accounting systems. We have, as Joe had mentioned, we have a direct interface to many different accounting applications. As you mentioned, Microsoft Great Plains, ACPAC, many of the Sage products. And then for ones that we do not have a direct interface to, we use CSV files.
Thank you, Tom. Are you able to provide a quote for existing NextGen clients?
Yes. So if you would like a quote, please get in contact with me, and my contact information is on the screen there, and then we can put together a quote. What I'll need from you for the quote is the size of your practice, the number of practices that you have set up in NextGen, and also your accounting application.
Okay, perfect. So it looks like that might be it. We can hang on a minute just in case anybody else is still typing. But thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Tom and Joe, for doing the presentations. And again, if you have any questions that you can't think of right now but you think of later, feel free to email either Tom or Joe. You see their information up on the screen, or you can reply back to my email when I send out the recording later this week. So don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help you. Looks like that's it. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.